Hello everyone, it's Big Alski. Well, this is day 6, part 1 of our Ninja Gaiden 3 Ultimate Ninja series. This first part right here, it might look a little funny. I had to actually go back and re-record this because the first time I went through everything, I never really noticed anything until I put it together, but you just could not see, the guys at all. It was just so white. So, my score is not going to match up whenever I drop down in the cave. The guys look a little bit funny, but, this is the best I could do here. So, having said that, it's all the techniques and everything I did are the same. But again, for these guys, do our usual, jump on their heads. And of course I had to put little snowflakes in there. Jump on their heads and, kill them with the dragon sword. Now in Ultimate Ninja, it's these guys right here, which makes it, to me a lot easier than the military guys. There are some fights in Ultimate Ninja that are, easier, than in Master Ninja. The only thing you really have to worry about is when the guys start doing their little crawling move that they're going to explode, that, you're not close by to it. But I'm not going to mess with, trying to target the snowmobiles right now until, I build up enough for my UT. Sometimes when you jump up in the air to try to target the snowmobiles and everything like that, you'd land in one of those, the grabs or the hit attacks of the little fiend enemies right there, whatever they're called, the fiend imps. And so I'd just rather take out the guys, to build my UT up and then just go from there.
Pretty slick.
So you see my UT was still kind of built up, and then it kind of disappeared. And then you'll notice it'll be back again whenever I get close to the alchemist again. So I don't know why it does that, but I think the reason it built up so fast is because not only did I kill some of the fiend imps with my UT, I killed some of the snowmobile guys and everything. And again, I'm just going to use the claws. There's a couple other ways to do that. The dragon sword, now that you have it at level 5, you can do some new combos with that on the alchemist. But and I show that a little bit later on in this chapter.
Leave this to us. Surround him.
See that right there? It's like he wasn't fast enough. I put the, I inputted the move in, and he just wasn't going to do it and let me get grabbed. But that right there, that's just me missing my X plus A. So, again, sometimes it's the game, but, sometimes it's also the player. And again, focus on all the alchemists before I really mess with the snowmobile guys. But now I'm going back to the regular, to how the regular video captured right here. And one thing, going with this, throwing the shurikens, if you're gonna be jumping close to a wall, the shurikens will make sure you don't, hit the wall. But if you happen to hit the wall, of course, I do my Blade of Neridi, the XYXXX, and right when he's changing so it doesn't pick him up. But, the shurikens will keep you from hitting that wall, and But if you do hit the wall and you flip over, you know, either throw the shurikens before you land or do the on-landing 360. So you're just not, you know, open if you have the scythe out. Or really with the other weapons too. Now you could chain that 360Y for a little while and maybe, you know, steel on bone the ninjas. You know, so that's another alternative. Now the reason I'm not using my UT right now is I want to wait for one of the little brute monkey apes, or you know, whatever they're called, you know, before I you know, I don't want to waste a full UT. And again, I'm going to switch back over to my dragon sword because I know it's going to connect. I don't want to miss, you know, everybody like I did in the last chapter. And I'm just pressing Y, maybe hoping to get an OT out of somebody, just in case, you know, it's in my blood. You know, the main thing that, you know, you want to take out of all this stuff is, you know, don't be too overly aggressive, you know, and take your timing. Like I said, you see me jumping back and forth a lot, you know, to really pick my spots. You know, there's sometimes you want to be aggressive and, you know, sometimes you don't have to be. So again, it's just something that as you play it, you know, you'll figure out what's best for you. Now you could stay down there and maybe kill a few of those guys, but you know, it's really not worth it. You know, when I first played through this, I tried to, like, you know, kill all the bugs right there, and you know, but I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna run all the way up to where, you know, I have to flip up at, and then that's when I'm just gonna, you know, start trying to kill everybody. The slowdown is brutal on this sometimes, but I want to keep my scythe out and make sure that I have all the bugs. You know, I've killed all the bugs, because you know they'll sit there and, you know, do a flip on you, and then, you know, these guys will grab you one time and then that's it. You know, I could just, you know, go ahead and flip up, but again, you know, one of the things, you know, one of our goals during this series is to not skip any fights. And see, I got hit, you know, going up in my Azuna drop. I mean, sometimes that happens. And I thought about, after getting hit there, you know, maybe dying and starting over. You know, that's another thing with, you know, being able to, you know, fight a couple fights and then go back. Instead of having to go, you know, a long ways back. I thought about starting over so I would have a better health bar, but I said, no, I did okay. Let me, the next series of fight, or the next fight shouldn't be that bad, and I forgot how many alchemists there were in there. And, you know, it took me a few tries to get past everything. But again, you know, you could skip if you wanted to. Maybe not this fight, but you know, later on. And this is the good thing about the 360Y, you know, again, until you get all the bugs cleared, just keep chaining if it's possible. And then, so if they do their little alchemist throw stuff at you, you know, you're not going to be, you know, nailed by that stuff. But see, the game is so inconsistent in a sense. You know, before, whenever you fought alchemists, you would sit there, and after you would OT him, you would build up, you know, your Nympho meter. And, you know, now you're not, you know, really building up anything. You know, that's one of my gripes here, is how inconsistent, you know, the game could be. You know, so after this part, you know, you could probably just run across and, you know, again, skip this fight, but we're ultimate ninjas, so we're not going to skip any fights. But I am going to go back and single out the weakest guy farthest away from everybody. Because I'm an ultimate ninja. I'm going to make it as easy as possible for my ultimate ninja skills. You know, I could have easily gotten hit out of that. So again, you know, sometimes you just never know what you're going to get. You know, I don't know if it helps, but I've noticed I try to turn the camera away from a bunch of them at the same time. And that whole no-look attack thing on, you know, the Berserkers in Ninja Gaiden Black kind of comes to mind a little bit. You know, again, I don't know if that's true or not. It's just something I've noticed while I was making this right now. Now this is what I was gonna, you know, pull out the dragon sword and show the running XX, or the running XX, and then usually that'll pick them up, and then you could follow it up with some more X's, and then, you know, if that fully connected, it would make him bloody. I've seen in some videos where you could do the running XX and it lead into an Azuna drop, and you know, I keep trying my best to do the XX to where it'll pick them up, but it's not doing it. So this is not a very good example of what I'm trying to talk about. So the good part about this is, you know, it just shows that, you know, eventually you're going to be able to turn them bloody with, you know, the running XX, and then just jump on their head and OT them like normal. So I skipped all this other stuff. I've been playing with the different transitions that this has, so some of them are going to be kind of cheesy, but you know, it's a little fun. I'm trying to make sure everything's different. You know, I haven't, you know, made any new or, you know, duplicated anyone, so there's going to be some crazy ones later on. You know, here, sit there and, you know, maybe you could bring up the scythe and, you know, try to, you know, start chaining some steel on bone. But, you know, here, you know, you get the instant death, the combo kill, the obliteration, and, you know, so it's a lot of points. Again, it's a trade-off, but, you know, all we're gonna do is take the easy way to build up our, you know, not only our Nympho, but our UC. See, that time my OT connected. I don't think I got any points for it, but I might have. But now I have my Nympho, so now I just go ahead and use it. Plus, you want to be able to build up your, you know, your health bar for the next set of fights.
A fiend.
Again, jump on the heads. You know, the first time I tried to go through this, I tried to, you know, Azuna drop everybody and slide Y and do all that stuff before I realized this worked. My computer's doing some background stuff, so I hope this doesn't mess anything up. It just now told me it was doing background stuff while it's idle, but I'm not idle. again, I hope none of this messed anything up. Now, if you kill all these guys, you know, by jumping on their heads and OTing them, you will get your UT, you know, available. I mean, I could have nimpoed him, but, you know, why lose out on the points if I don't have to? When, you know, these are easy points to get. So just be careful of all these guys. You know, because they will track you down if you get stuck in the middle of them. But again, we're just going to do more of the same for the whole thing. And again, it's real crucial that you OT these guys because you want to build your Nimpo up. It's very important that you build your Nimpo up on Ultimate Ninja for this fight. So he summons those guys about halfway through it, so just be prepared to run away because they do a lot of damage. I'm trying to get this guy. That's some Ultimate Ninja skill right there. Finally, wow. I didn't realize it took me that long. I probably should have switched back over to the scythe, but I wanted to do something a little bit different, and that's what it got me right there, you know. Now, there's a lot of techniques to beat these guys. I usually let them jump and then, you know, dodge it and then, you know, attack, you know, with, you know, some combo. Sometimes I just kind of button mash it. Now, the thing that I do want to suggest, and of course, you know, I didn't get out of the way completely. It's a good thing he didn't kill me. But I squeeze that trigger, you know, really tight before I slide, you know, whenever he jumps. And, you know, because I found before, you know, if you release it just a little bit too soon, you know, you don't maybe slide as far as you thought, or he hits you. But you see, now that I have my Nimpo built up, you know, there's 3 of these guys out here now, so you really want to have that Nimpo built up. But anyway, you know, that's it. You know, this fight will be over. I'll go in and save. So that's it for, you know, part 1, and we'll see you in part 2. Thanks.